All right.
Well, greetings, printing enthusiasts. Thank you for joining us for another How Would You Slice That? I'm Vicky Soma, to also go by Tika on the social medias. And with me, as always, we have Dr. Lawrence Nightingale.
Hey, Vicky, how are you?
And tonight, banter part of this, we've just got to be really cognizant and like try to keep it brief because so much has happened since we've last seen you with Dustin Dixon in September. Like we had 3D Printopia in our area, in the Northern Virginia area. We had a Maker Faire Nova event. I bought a Cocoa Press. I haven't built it yet, but I bought it. So,
yeah. Vicky.
What? Yeah. It's been my dream for over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I told my husband, like, I bought it, like, Ellie from Cocoa Press just happened to be passing by the registration desk at 3D Printopia, and I bought it right there. She was able to ring me up right there. And then I told my husband afterwards, and then and he was real cool with it. And I said, thank you for being so cool with my impulse buy. And he said, impulse buy? Impulse buy? The printer you've been talking about for a whole year is an impulse buy? So I just finally got myself a Cocoa Press.
It's an impulse in geographic time. In geological time is definitely impulsive, but human time, we could consider that to be a little bit longer. But but that's great that you got it. Now just impulsively put it together. I bought a 3D printer and an AMS as well.
Okay.
At 3D Printopia, and I basically just waited till the very, 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 very last minute to see just how whether I could make myself do it or not. And Sunday on the way out, I bought a bamboo P1S with the 4 colors, and I've been quite pleased. I've been quite pleased with it. I will tell you that of course, first of all, there's not much putting together of those, so that's kind of the difference between the two. Please, if you still need, if that thing is still not assembled in 2 weeks, we definitely have to put it together.
So wait, hold on, brainstorm here. Just a number of years ago, I had a CR10 and I brought it down to Lawrence's innovation lab, and the students helped me assemble it. So we had, and it was like a learning opportunity for them.
Yes.
So maybe that's I will
absolutely
definitely think about that, because it will be advantageous to have chocolate in the coming holiday seasons.
Oh my gosh, I'm jealous of the things that you're about to experience with that Cocoa Press. So it's gonna be a great time. It's going to be a great time, and yes, it is a wonderful learning experience for the students. And when you be able to expose yourself to different modalities with different materials and stuff like that, Cocoa Press delivers. Everybody wins. Wins. So yes, please do. Let's put something on the calendar. I have to see that thing, brought to life as soon as possible. Yeah. But I mean, because I've printed trophies on my unit. I've printed recreations of the Venus de Milo already, Halloween masks, fidgets. I took my
This is all with your new printer.
Yes.
Yeah. So mine's still in the box. You've done all this.
I took my A1 Mini and I actually delivered it over to Nova, to my college. So my students are using my A1 Mini and I'm using the P1S. And I will tell you, the one thing that I miss about the A1 Mini is that the A1 Mini has a software to analyze when there are print failures, which like that ability skips the generation. It seems like it's not in the it's in the X1 and it's not in the P1, but it's in the Mini, the A1 Mini, I suppose, on the A1 as well. That's the only feature that I really, really wish could be, in parallel to both platforms, in common to both platforms. But I've been very pleased with it. Enclosed printing. It's not as quiet as the A1 Mini, but I've been very, very pleased with it. So, yeah.
So I don't want to keep our guests waiting too long, but I will I did buy my son an A1 Mini when they had that big anniversary sale.
Oh,
And now, as I was prepping for 3D Printopia or prepping for Maker Faire Nova, he would rent me his A1 Mini for $5 a day, so I could get things done a little bit faster.
oh, well, that's great. I mean, he's learning about production and machine time and everything. That's great. That is great. Yeah. And so now the only other thing, yes, we do not want to keep our guests waiting. How do you think that the maker chip experiment worked out, and how could we make it more robust?
It seemed like it was a huge hit. I think probably the only flaw with the maker chip endeavor was me not giving out my maker chips. I was too busy working. So like some select few people, happened to be at the right place, right time, and I was able to give them to them. But I did have them at Maker Faire Nova, and so I was kind of like infecting that community with maker chips. So now that's going to spread even further.
I had my chips with me at Maker Faire Nova, and I didn't give any out because it wasn't. People hadn't understood how the whole thing went. It would be just me and you giving coins back and forth, which we've already done. So, yeah. All right. Well, great. Yes, I'm very interested to be talking to our guest tonight.
All right. Sounds like a segue to me. All right, everyone. This past weekend, I spent pretty much the whole weekend cleaning my office because it was a mess. And it was an endeavor. Sometimes I had a lump in my throat and I wanted to cry because it's so overwhelming. And if you're like me, if you have a cluttered desk or an office, do not despair, because tonight's guest can help your cause with 3D printing. He is a graphic and industrial designer. And in 2019, he started learning 3D modeling with a project. And it's an endeavor he now calls the GEN2 Quick Lock Modular System. If you're not familiar with it, it is a robust collection of 3D models that you can just mix and match to make your own custom organization solution. So if you need a place to store hex bits, hey, there's a drawer for that. If you want storage for your extra 3D printing build plates, hey, there's an adjustable steel sheet holder. And the solutions are not limited to like your little 3D printing workshops. You can print drawers for every room in your household. For example, if you happen to like Keurig coffee, which I have a bunch of Keurig K-cups in that daisy lamp there. But if you don't have them cut up as daisies, there is an insert so you can install the little K-cups in one of the drawers. And then one of his more recent releases is removable faceplates, which means not only can you use the drawers in any space, but you can easily match any decor as well. And then if you do home renovations later down the road, you can easily rematch the decor by just swapping drawers around or just removing and switching, printing a new faceplate. So tonight, as his 3D models are nearing 90,000 downloads, we're going to talk to Joey Gasper from Jerrari 3D. And here he is. Welcome, Joey.
Hello.
Hey, Joey.
So, everyone, if you weren't at 3D Printopia, well, I mean, if you were at 3D Printopia, you already know this, but if you weren't, Joey was also one of our exhibitors at 3D Printopia. Thank you for coming all that way from Michigan to display your wares.
Oh, it was fun. It was totally worth it. It's interesting because this year was the first year I actually kind of put myself out there. I've been working on this project since 2019, like you said, and you don't really know how people react to anything other than like little things here and there online, but to actually see people like in person at these events, like just it's crazy. Some people are like, man, I've been downloading your stuff for years, and I'm like, I would. I don't know. It's kind of a fun, like, hey, I did something, like, that's cool. I don't know. It's a fun feeling. But just meeting so many people and then showing people stuff and them being like, oh, there's a father and son at 3D Printopia, and they're like, I was showing them the stuff, and the father turns to the son, and he's like, okay, we got to print that. Like I think they just got a 3D printer that day or recently, and like that was just cool seeing them excited about it. So yeah.
And then
Wonderful.
before the show, Joey was telling us that his designs have actually encouraged people to buy 3D printers so they could come back and print it.
Yeah. So, I think like a lot of where I got into this was I bought a 3D printer and I didn't know what to do with it. So I think most people do this where they start printing things for their 3D printer, which is kind of a goofy thing to do. But I mean, it's a great thing. I mean, you start realizing like, okay, I have these tools. Where do I got to put these and all that? And I guess that's where it started for me. When I started this project, there was no Printables or Thangs or any of that. There was Thingiverse,
Thingiverse, that was it.
which I don't know if you remember. It was great, but it was incredibly slow and kind of painful to use. And yeah, I just remember like spending like half an hour or something trying to find some kind of drawer thing, and I couldn't. And I'm like, I probably could just make it faster than searching for it. So I just came up with dimensions, and actually I have the first drawer I ever made. I still use, and you can see it's like this.
That's how you did the magnet. You have a magnet in the back.
Yes, so that was the
so
original
that's how you
design.
did the magnets back then.
You had to glue them in, and yeah, that's kind of been a design thing for me that I'm like, I hate working with glue. Like, and then if the magnets, the polarity is backwards, you can't just take it out and flip it around. So I'm like, I gotta change that. So that's kind of segueing into that a little bit of just like designing for, like finding a purpose to improve. But
what did you design? What software did you design on, Joey?
Fusion 360. So I was new to it at the time. I guess looking way back, like in high school, this would have been like 2005 for me. I was really, really interested in like 3D modeling stuff. And it was really hard to get your hands on anything back then. There was like 3ds Max, RhinoCAD, AutoCAD, all that stuff. And they didn't really just like now you could do like personal license or whatever. Back then it was like, okay, 14-day trial, and it was like, what is your company name? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm like a child, but here you go. I just do something, and then it would expire. I would literally reinstall Windows and then like I was like desperate, like, oh, I gotta learn 3ds Max. Like I would do all this stuff, and I would actually, I loved rendering stuff. I mean, obviously like back then it was like you could 3D model, but for what? Like but I was so fascinated spending like 8 hours on a Pentium 4 rendering like a little tiny image of something, and like, oh, that looks like kind of real. Kind of. But when I went to college, like I had to, obviously decide on what I wanted to go into. And this was around 2007, 2008, right at the recession. There just wasn't a good like field to go into. So I actually kind of like went part-time trying to figure it out. I was wanted to be something in computers. I wanted to be something engineering. I wanted to be, I don't know, but I ended up finishing college a few years later in actually art in a graphic design and stuff. So a lot of fine arts, so a lot of computer stuff and I don't know. I'm a kind of took a jack of all trades when I was in college. So yeah.
Your story's not all that unusual. I've got some students that work for me in my 3D printing lab that have much the same interests: art, design, rendering, and making things real. Now they do all the art and design. They pretty much go straight to the 3D printer. So that's an additional tool to really reinforce that. So even though it seemed different at the time, what you did is very, very. A lot of people are doing that. So
yeah, it's I think it took me a long time to kind of grasp like 3D printing or something. Like I think it was kind of like when one of my friends got one, and I was like, wait, I could like model something and it turns into like something like tangible, like you could do something with. I'm like, that's fascinating. So,
Uh-huh.
but that was years and years later. I didn't 3D model for a long time. I didn't know what program to use or anything after pretty much high school. But actually, I could show you really quick if you don't mind. Yesterday I was going through and I found that render, and
Oh wow.
yeah, let me just do an entire screen
An
here.
8-hour render of a toothpick.
While you do that, I'll reminisce about high school where I was completely indifferent to computers. I didn't want to own my own computer until one of my friends took a yearbook, scanned a photo of somebody we didn't like, and drew horns on them and sent it to another student. And I'm like, oh, computer now.
You know, that was I think that I think it was like 1996. I would have been like 8 years old. I remember my parents bought a Windows 95 computer, and that was the first time I'd ever seen like 3D games and 3D graphics. And I just remember that was so fascinating to me. Like that was great. That was like my favorite computer time of. Literally, I remember having to use like a typewriter for classes before that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy to think how much changed in the 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, this little tiny image, I'm going to zoom in here.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was something I made in 2004, I think it was.
Wow. Okay.
So I played tennis. So it was like, what's a model? And like, yeah, this was, I spent probably over 40 hours just trying to figure this out.
I can see that.
Yeah, it was like super high resolution way back then, and it kept crashing the computer. But yeah, that was kind of my start, and then I just stopped for a long time. But yeah, so that's that. I wanted to share that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can see the mechanical designs. I can see the interlace of the strings on the racket and everything. I can almost see how that would lend itself to what you're doing now. I mean, you're taking and you're making drawers that are thin and lightweight and durable. But tell us how it is you came to the drawer design. Was it simply
real quick? Karen wanted to know if you printed the tennis racket.
I haven't. Now that I found it yesterday, I'm gonna do that.
Maybe you could use some 3D print bunny action, like with the bridging for the strings.
Oh man, that would be cool. Okay, so I met her at 3D Printopia. It was my second time meeting her. I met her at
Jeans with the Fix 'em Dude.
Yeah, she actually when like clubs started coming around, she was like the first one I subscribed to because I don't know, I don't know, that stringer stuff is just so cool. It's so different. But what was your question again, Lawrence?
My question was how did you come to doing how'd you come to doing storage systems as your major contribution in 3D printing?
Right. So it didn't start I guess that was my first model I shared. And I was kind of like felt weird about sharing it too, because I'm like, I don't know, maybe this will be useful to someone, who knows. But yeah, it was built out of a need for myself. Like I'm just like I need some kind of storage. Like I'm gonna lose all these tools and stuff. So that's where it started. But I was also around that time, like if you look way back on Prusa Prints, I was doing like little clips for cable management, and then I was doing tool hangers stuff. Now I think about it, yeah, I guess it's always been organization. I don't know why, but I like the very useful prints over like, you know, beautiful prints,
artistic, expressive,
which is funny because that comes like full circle. But so when I started them as well, I have like this is like one of the first drawer cases. So you can see I started with I guess this would be Gen 1. Just you take these little tiny wood screws and you'd have to like screw this in, like underneath at that time the lac table, but you could use anything, and it was super tedious. And once I got them installed, I'm like, all right, it's not coming off. Like that's good. And then, you know, like as time goes on, you start thinking of like, oh, how can I make that better? I want to add more drawers, but they're a pain to install. And yeah, ultimately, like, it just kept like, oh man, I got to the point where I was like prototyping it more or less, and I'm like, I need to be able to change this in and out. I'm like, if only there was a way I could just like slide them out. And that's where I think it was 2022. It had been a few years later.
No kidding.
I finally came up with something. And I didn't realize this for a while. Like I check on the, my own prints once in a while. But I remember one day I went on there and there was like over like 1,000 downloads. It was a slow growth, but I'm like, man, people keep downloading this. That's kind of crazy, and sharing their makes, everything. So it was really fun. Yep, there they are, way at the bottom.
Oh boy.
So yeah, that was kind of motivation right there of just like, hey, there's interest in this. And yeah, you could see a few things that were just kind of like, I try a lot of different directions, and a lot of things were like stuff I made for myself, obviously, and then just like, okay, I should probably share this. And I also tried some of the little competitions Prusa would put out, but it kind of got to a point where it was like, okay, opportunity cost, where am I going to put most of my focus? And that started going into the Gen 2 system.
There's the IKEA table, right?
Yes, yeah. And at that time, even still now, it's a really popular way. If you buy a Prusa or a Creality, like Ender 3 or something, they're not enclosed. It's so cheap to build. Lack enclosure, yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of people thought that these drawers would only work with the lack enclosure, but it's like, no, you can use them. I try to emphasize that, like workbenches, everything. But then I think that was right. So that was I think that was earlier this year or last year. I think it was last year. I started doing tabletop kits. I had a lot of people asking for those, and it was harder than it seemed because it's kind of the reverse of what I designed everything to hang, but it's like you play around with it enough, you can figure that out. But the biggest, like craziest breakthrough, and this is where I saw like a huge spike in downloads and just interest in the project, was when I switched over to, didn't switch over to it. I came up with it, but here's actually the first prototype of it. It's the quick lock system. So I don't even think I can get this prototype's a little clunky, but basically it was the there we go. The little spring-loaded compliant mechanism. And I spent, I don't know how long. It's one of those things where it's like spending a couple hours on it, taking a break from it for a few days or a few weeks, and then coming back to it, and like not sure if it would even work. And then eventually it was like, it worked, refine, and then it just it makes it so nice now, because it just I mean, I have a lot of fun with these, how quick they snap together. In my like older YouTube videos, you could see like how painful it is to like attach. Like I have a little sliding rail in the back. I mean, it still works, but
yes,
it's a kind of a nightmare to. You can imagine, like if you were doing all these, you'd spend probably over an hour connecting them together versus just like instantly snapping them together. So yeah, that was a fun part, and that's kind of.
Hold on a second. One thing, Joey, about assembling things and putting things together and all those things. That also think about how long freestanding drawers and hardware and stuff has been around in human history. Like, I don't know, Thomas Jefferson probably had one, but here you are. You took a couple hours, and all of a sudden you have a quick locking system that's faster than anything that has ever been produced in all of human existence. So you should be proud of that.
Well, thank you. I guess, yeah, I never thought of it that way. Yeah. It's crazy because like 3D printing is like the rapid prototyping, right? It's just like,
yes.
I'm not a mechanical engineer. I think a lot of that stuff back in the day, if you were a company designing that stuff, you would hire a mechanical engineer. You'd hire someone with a lot of experience in that. 3D printing, it's like you can know nothing about it and just start from somewhere and just play around with it and just refine. And I mean, like, this started so simple, the original drawer, and now it's like there's so many complexities. I look at it, I'm like, who designed that thing? It's like, it's crazy. Like, yeah, there's so many things in here that, like, the lattice structure and all that just kind of like formed over time, because it was like, if I'm reprinting it, I might as well make it a little better and a little better. But like there's two little rails in here that sit higher than all the structure, and that removes some of your resistance. And then I had an engineering friend a few months ago who was like, hey, your sides, there's too much friction. And I'm like, and it'd warp a little bit if you're printing something really tall. I'm like, if I move the structure like center it more, and like then it won't have all that friction there, and it started reducing warping a little bit, and just all these little improvements over time. And it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, it's just kind of seeing what it evolves into is interesting. And I mean, I'm not done at all. Like, I'm already working on like anything I can make toolless with this. That's kind of my side goal. And there's still some things that, like, if you want to attach like the feet and stuff, you have to put one or two screws in there. But I'm trying to come up with like more compliant mechanisms built into it that just print, and maybe you don't even know they're part of the structure, but they're going to be there. So that's something I'm hoping to come out with. It might not be this year, but it'll definitely be over the next couple of months. So.
Wow, wonderful. And how do you like? So what we have a tendency to ask this question from time to time. What was your first printer? And how is the operation of that first printer compared to where you're at now? Okay,
so it was kind of interesting. I'm trying to think. I didn't actually have a printer for my first 3D prints. My friend did, and that was the first time. My friend Kyle, who was at the 3D Printopia with me, he kind of introduced me into it. And I remember going to his house one day and just hearing the weird noises of he bought a Prusa Mark II. And it's a funny story because I now have that Prusa Mark II. And, it's actually running right now in the garage. So I still use it. It's incredibly slow compared to, newer like Mark IV and all that stuff. But it's a tank. It just keeps running. But actually, I can show you if you'd like to see. Here we go. So my first project, I put it on Reddit, and I remember, this was pretty cool. 6 years ago now, and it was, let me jump to the top. So I built a computer case. So this was kind of like I was in between jobs at that time. I was just freelancing, and I remember just I was really bored, and I'm like, man, I should make, like, I just never made anything, like I draw or something if I was going to do something creative. But I'm like, I like computers. And my mind back then was like, man, the cases kind of suck. Like they don't, I don't know. I always like liquid cooling, always really advanced things. And I just wanted to build something unique. So I actually went through and Frankensteined old computer parts from like 2006 or so, as well as like just raw metal. Like I didn't know how to work with metal very much, but my dad did, so he kind of taught me.
Did you get the tetanus shot before or after you started?
Yeah, I had it before. This is actually aluminum, so I wouldn't have to worry about it. So it was a little easier to work with that way. But and then powder coating. It was just one of those projects. I just started learning a lot. Like, but the faceplates on this are 3D printed, and I think like there's the cover, there's the front. This is actually a computer.
You can see, that looks like an early print. Like
the lines.
Yeah. I have prints that look like that too.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I should reprint it and with like wood fill or something now, but that was all printed on Mark II, yeah, years ago, and I'm still using that's a computer I'm on right now. I threw a graphics card in there though that's so ginormous it's sticking out the side, so I have to figure that out. I might have to, 3D model something else, but yeah, that's kind of like my other little passion project on the side. So
yeah, Karen says it's so much character. Oh wow.
Yes.
So it has like the fingerprints of early 3D printing on it.
Wow. But one thing about the unit that you've got is that, being able to stick with the same unit across this time period, 5 years, I think that's pretty notable. I think that's pretty spectacular, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all the drawers that we see behind you, those are all printed on a Mark II?
No. So the early one, this one would have been on a Mark II.
Okay.
But it wasn't long after I bought it from my buddy. I invested in a Mark III. Because the Mark II actually broke. I'm like, how do you fix it? I was like gluing parts together to try to get it to print other parts. It's like printers printing printers. I love that about Prusa, but you have to have two if you want to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and seeing the improvements on the Mark III, and then I did. Those were the printers I had up till 2 years ago. I ran those things. That's all I had. I printed so many things on them.
Wow.
And then Printables, I had enough points to trade in for a Prusa Mini. So I got one of those. And then I had pre-ordered the XL. Like I wanted that thing so bad years, like right when they announced it. I remember I woke up that morning. It was like 5 a.m. and I pre-ordered it. So I actually ended up, I think it was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks after the Mini, my pre-order came through, and like I got it like one of the first month. I think it was the first month it came out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is so cool. And it just, but the bamboo Carbon X1 came out around the same time. And I was kind of feeling that feeling. I think some people were too, of like, man, that thing is so high tech and so fast. And the XL felt so slow, but it was big. I really wanted that larger
build volume
size to build stuff on. And then the crazy thing was it kept getting faster and better and better. And then I upgraded from a single head to a 2 head to a 5 head. Like I was just blown away by it. And then a few months ago, I bought a Mark IV. So I've had everything but the Mark I now. But it's kind of fun because like at work we have a bamboo Carbon X1, so it's like I kind of get to I don't know, I'm just at a weird stage right now where I'm like playing with these really awesome printers, and I get to see what I like and don't like about all of them. But no, it's great. And and I have to mention that too. Ellie from Cocoa Press and Karen too, they were the ones at the show. It was like the last 3D Printopia, the last hour or so. They're like, oh, Joseph Prusa's here. And I'm like, I was kind of like fanboying because it was like, I never thought like way back when I, getting the Mark II, I'm like, who's Joseph Prusa? And kind of learning like the whole thing with open source and all this stuff. I never thought I'd meet him. And it was really like, oh man, this is crazy. They're just, I don't know. That's what I love about the Rep festivals. Just you see everyone as just normal, just like you, and it's right. That's so interesting. It's fascinating, and obviously everyone's all into nerding out about 3D printing, so it's so easy to talk to everyone about it. So yeah.
Well, it's the ability to talk about 3D printing without the social awkwardness. It's really kind of the best part of the whole thing.
Like you're sitting at a party and you're kind of bored and you're wishing someone would bring up 3D printing so you have something to talk about.
Oh, it is so funny because like I think of like my grandma, like I gave her a 3D print one time, and I'm like, yeah, I printed this. She's like, okay, like I don't think like some people you show and they're just like, I don't know what you're talking about right now. But you're like, oh, it's so cool, but it's definitely one of those things like a lot of times it's really nice out. I have my printers set up in my garage, and it's fun, especially seeing the Prusa XL, like grabbing the different tool heads and moving around and stuff. That's like right there. So what'll happen a lot of times, like the neighbor kids will be outside and stuff like that. And my neighbor, he's about my age. He'll stop on over, and I feel like every time he stops by, I got new stuff. Like, oh yeah, check this. I gotta show him that. And his kids will be playing around with like, because I'll do fun prints once in a while too. We printed. I remember when I got the XL, we printed a snake, but we made it like 300% bigger. And we thought it'd be like, like 4 foot long or something. It ended up being like 7 or 8 feet. Like I couldn't hold it up in the air. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is
like
too big.
How our intestines, they're all wound up and they're really long.
Yeah.
But get back to that. It's fascinating seeing like young people like seeing all this stuff. And I'm like, man, when I was a kid, like there's nothing like this. Like and I think that's part of my interest in it now is like I get home and it's like, you can make this stuff and it's so rewarding to see it like turn into something, and then to share that and then see everyone else, make it and get excited about it. I think that's kind of probably my main motivation behind this project is just seeing that community starting and it growing. So yeah, kind of cool.
Wow.
I think one thing is certain, that you are a project-based learner. Like even the computer, you're like, this is a project and I'm going to learn all this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And 3D printing lends itself to that 100%. Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And, and so, well, I think it's probably about time to talk about some of the technical stuff. What do you think, Vicky?
Sure. So as a little segue, Joey's not a mechanical engineer, but he's done all this great work of very technical designs, and I've been printing them in the last few weeks just to prep for the show, and also we'll have a souvenir of the show afterwards. And it's just really amazing how robust and flexible these designs are, how forgiving they are. I've even tried it on my old Maker gear, and it's pristine. There's not much slicing challenges there, really. But another thing that Joey does is his own like promotion and marketing. And we already talked a little bit. He did renders with the tennis rackets. So one thing if you've run across his designs before, you may have seen he's did this interactive catalog. I can pull it up eventually. But I think that's some of the things that you're going to show us, Joey, is how you present these things or how you market.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess a little background on myself too. Like, so yeah, I went into like graphic design and stuff. And it was kind of a terribly competitive field to go into. And it's constantly challenged, by AI and stuff. Some of the things that we learned in school, now it's like you see Adobe Photoshop just doing it in one click and you're like, I remember working on something like that for like 3 hours. So it's something where it's like you constantly got to adapt. You constantly got to be unique, I think. And at first I struggled with that. And then I think going like 3D route and doing all this other stuff, I don't know. I like being a jack of all trades and just learning a lot of different software in general. But I think that helps a lot. But yeah, I started as at where I'm currently. I actually work at a company that does ADA signage. So we do all your braille signage and like room numbers and stuff. So I know all about like the compliancy codes and all that stuff. But I started as a lead designer there about 6 years ago, and then found out I don't like being like management. I'm more like project based, right? So like I do a lot of like the product design, the web design, the marketing, all that stuff. So a lot of that stuff comes into play with what I'm doing here. I practice here, and then I take what I learn here and I apply to that work. So it kind of goes hand in hand, and it gives me an opportunity to really learn the programs a lot better. So I've done freelance like catalogs for like aftermarket automotive company. There's a lot of automotive stuff in Michigan, but yeah. So
Yes.
that's kind of where I get like the layout ideas and like how I want to present it. And I don't know if this will show
it looks so professional.
and
Yes.
you know what's crazy? Those images, like if you use Fusion 360, you can do those really easily. I could show you guys how I do that if you like. Okay, yeah. So let me share here. I'm still getting used to this whole presenting thing on here. Okay. Okay. Let me move you over here. So yeah, I use it's funny because I have a commercial version of Fusion, and then I have my personal one, but it drives me crazy because I have so many things in the personal one, so I'm like constantly logging out, logging in, so it's a mess. And you'd think I would be organized in the software. it's a mess. So
yeah, I was like wondering, like, this gentleman who organizes, helps us organize, what does he do to organize all his files?
Yeah, I actually need to go back through and like recreate some of the things, because I've had a lot of people in my club. I share a lot of the models, and they're just like, oh gosh, and I clean up the models too, and they're like, you need to do some parametric design and all that stuff, and I'm like, yes, but I'm one of those people. I'm taking like the original drawers and I'm tweaking them, and I don't know what the end result's going to be a lot of times. It's hard to do that with parametric. But I need to go back through and like recreate things in parametric. So I just need to do that at some point. But essentially, like if you have your 3D model like this, there's a couple things that are really effective is your materials. So in Fusion, they have all these like preset things. So for instance, like plastic, you can flip through there and like there's ABS. I mean, I think that's actually what I use most of the time. You just set that and then you can color it. You get RGB values, translucency, all these little things you can just kind of play around with. And I mean, once you kind of find something that works, then you can just create whatever colors you want based off of that. But let's go to the render screen. And usually what I'll do is it defaults to a perspective camera. So it's got like, weird depth. If you zoom in, it's going to be all like fisheye and stuff. Like you don't really want that for a lot of things if you're trying to lay it out in a catalog. So a lot of times I'll do orthographic. So there's no perspective. It's just a very geometric shape. And you can, for consistency, in the top right, you got the little cube. You can pick like a top corner and like center it based on that. Let's see what else. I try to be consistent too with this is it's called position. I guess it is position, but you can rotate it, and this thing in the background you see is oh my gosh, what do they call it? It's like a sphere turned inside out. Like they do it a lot in video games. Like if you're looking at the sky and stuff, it's actually like a dome or a sphere. And what happens, that reflects back onto your model when you render it. Okay. You can imagine like if you have a sphere view like that, a lot of times they're made off of like one of those cameras that can take like a 360-degree photo. But what happens, like any of those things, like windows and all that stuff, those all reflect back into your model and make it a lot more realistic than, say, like a light tent where there's nothing to reflect back. So it's always about creating realism when you're rendering stuff. What I do here is I tell it not, let's see, I'm gonna, not in that menu. See, I don't change these things very often, so I'm trying to remember exactly what I do.
But I'm just gonna say real quick, it did not occur to me that these were renders in your catalog. I thought you're taking photographs.
It's okay. So this is what's crazy. Like you could spend so much time taking photographs. I ran into this at work actually when I was hired in. The company owner, he wanted me to take photos of signs to put online to sell. And it was an interesting problem because I had to program the signs. They had to manufacture them. They had to be cleaned. They had assembled, all that stuff. Then I would get them. I'd have to clean them, make sure they weren't dusty, put them in a light tent, take photos, take them out, edit the photo. You know, it was just like a lot of work. And I presented the idea one day. I'm like, I know how to use this program for 3D modeling at home for, 3D printing. I'm like, can I just try that? And he let me. And I started 3D rendering signs. And it was so much faster and it was just cleaner. And I was actually adding like dust and noise to the photos to make them look even more real because they were too perfect, right? So that tends to happen with it. But yeah, it's a great alternative to printing something and taking a photo. Although it's good to show people, that's printable and what it turns out like. This is just a good alternative. So with that other stuff set up though, I usually do transparent background. You can do that with a PNG. And I don't go crazy with the resolution. I just do like 1000 by 1000. Unless I'm doing like something that's going to show up on a 4K screen, you'll do that and then you render. And then rendering is the intense part. That was that part where back in the day when all I had was a Pentium 4, it would take me, like 8 hours, 11 hours. Like I remember rendering stuff and going to bed and waking up and that room would be like roasting hot, right? Because it's just like computer is just trying to process all that. And tiny little image of my tennis racket, right? This is where I always, when I took design classes, like everyone's like, oh, I got the new iMac, laptop, which, Macs were nice, but I was more about bang for your buck. So I liked playing games a lot on the computers. So that was another thing that went, with this too, where if you invest in like a decent computer or you learn how to build one, it's the tool that you use the most. Like I think I can't think of anything that I use more than a computer. So it's I don't know. I think it's very worth like investing in and getting something that's going to be powerful and good for what you're using it for. So
for sure.
Yeah, this thing is working really hard, but it should be done here it says a minute.
It hasn't taken down your audio or video yet.
Yeah,
which it can get a little crackly sometimes. It's like, oh man, like what's going on? And then I could show you too. There's another program. I'm not going to run these at the same time because it'll probably just make the computer explode or something terrible. But this is another program. This is Adobe Substance. So this is something I use at work. And I practice a little bit here with different things, but it's a little bit more work because Fusion kind of has everything all in one. This I have to export the files out and import them into here, create the materials in here. But once you have that stuff, where Fusion is like, there's the render. It turned out pretty good. This program though does something called real-time ray tracing, which if you play games, you'll be familiar with. I can toggle it on and you get basically what Fusion just did. It took a while to do. The graphics card on this computer is able to do it, split seconds. And if I go to render this, let's find something. I'm just going to override something here. I'm going to make it the same resolution and just render it. This will render in a minute. It still kind of takes long, but it's running off my GPU rather than the CPU. So typically this is just like blazing flat. it's just so fast. It's crazy. But yeah, I can create these like very realistic scenes and images, and then it's just like rinse and recycle. It's like having a photo booth that you don't have to like set up and clean and, you know, do all that all the time. You just use it when you need to and open the file, drag something in. So
being able to develop that skill, that's huge.
I'm glad that it's full screen on what your screen is, because there's been a couple of times where my jaw just drops. I'm thinking I need to put time investment into learning how to do renders.
This was my passion before, like 3D printing, because it was like creative virtual world that looks photorealistic is fun. And I think that's where I do it now because it's more efficient for me. Sometimes I've been starting to take more and more photos. I love doing photography. I took a lot of college classes on that too, but you know, it's the same principles. If you take digital photography or something, it's like you're setting the camera settings, depth of field, all that stuff. It kind of go hand in hand. So, how would you render that?
Yeah. Spin-off series.
Yeah,
Crime Wednesdays.
Yeah. So there's that. I can show you a few other things. Like obviously, like if you work in the
what program was that again? That was
so that was Adobe Substance. Substance used to be it's kind of frustrating because it used to be an open source software. Adobe realized, I think it was 2 years ago, that they missed out on 3D software. So they actually acquired Substance, and now it's a paid edition on top of the Adobe suite, which is kind of pricey. But the alternative to that would be Blender. Blender, I've been learning that a little bit this year too, and that's incredibly powerful, but it has a much steeper learning curve, but it does a lot more. So that's actually the direction I would recommend going if you want to get into rendering.
That gives me hope, because Blender is what I 3D model in. So
there you go.
Hopefully that'll give me a bit of an edge.
Have you done the donut? I know like everyone makes fun of that, but there's a tutorial out there. I'll have to send that to you. Someone sent that to me and I was just blown away. Like it's like it's making an organic shape, and then how to make it like super realistic. And I think it honestly looks better than this. So it's a lot to learn, and I just haven't had that time yet to really learn it. But I want to show this too. Team Blender. So that's my goal. Learn Blender eventually. Like it's a very awesome program. So the other thing in graphic design, like anytime I talk to like high school or someone getting into it, this is the program they hate the most, but then over time you end up liking it the most. And this is Adobe InDesign. So what it's mostly made for, it's kind of a dying industry, but like your catalogs, obviously, and your brochures and all that stuff, it works in a way that like you can, add gutters and, move things around. But if you actually download I can't show it on here until I export it, but on my actual PDF, I have some things that are animated. And most people didn't know they could do that in PDFs. And they used to be crazier when Flash was around, but that's gone now.
The interactive catalog?
Yeah. So that's part of the. Oh yeah, if you want to show it, I think it's on the first orange standard page. So if you go down, hover over those drawers. Oh, but that's the other kicker. It won't do it in the browser.
Oh, so I have to download it.
Yeah, but yeah, I was just playing around with that, just having fun. So I like putting little Easter eggs and that stuff.
Wow.
Okay. So what? Oh, there it is.
Oh, that's cool.
Can I zoom in? Oh, yeah, zoom in.
I think the drawer to the right of it might do it too.
That's clever.
So, yeah, I've also been looking at this catalog to prep for the episode, and I never noticed that.
Yep.
Wow.
It's actually probably someone was talking about the click of your quick lock system being so fulfilling. This is kind of fulfilling too.
Nice. Yeah. So,
So your designs, obviously have evolved quite a bit, and your marketing and the way you present your designs has evolved. You want to talk about the next evolvement over this catalog?
Ooh, yeah, I almost forgot. So, I actually, on my maker chips, actually, let me grab that. Did I show you guys this? That I know I put it on, I can't
Thangs.
think, X or Twitter.
Okay.
But I haven't shared this one yet. I've been meaning to, but it was my drawer for holding like 400 maker chips. But on my maker chip, the QR code there, I had it set up to a link stack, but just this week I redirected it to my new website for the project. So that's Jerrari3D.com. So that's essentially I'm taking the catalog, I'm moving it there, and I'm gonna add more stuff to it. So yeah,
Here, hold on. I'm gonna add it because I think it's beautiful. And tell them what you use to make the website.
So Karen Chow, she suggested Google Sites, and I'm glad she did because I looked into a couple different options, and actually super easy to use. If you guys use Printables.com, you'll find like how you set up the descriptions and stuff. I think they're actually using Google Sites to like do a lot of that stuff. So it's very similar. I started this on Friday night, and
Wow.
I mean, I had a lot of late nights. I was up till like midnight, 1 a.m. the last couple nights, but I was able to throw this together, and there's still a lot more work to do on it, but yeah, it's so I'm letting everyone know this is out there today. So I'm hoping this will make it easier for my instructions and make it also faster because that's one of my biggest hurdles is when I upload models, I have to create the images, I have to create the instructions. There's just so many things. I'm not one of those people that I just throw it out there and just like, I don't know, you figure it out. I want to have something. So that's why I made videos. I don't actually really enjoy making videos, but I know how impactful they are to just, use them as a, it's almost easier than doing like written instructions sometimes.
Yeah.
Just show it. So that too. There's also another project going on that I don't know. I want to share too much about it, but we are working on. I actually have some very smart people helping me with it, but OpenSCAD. They're working on a version that utilizes that, and it's probably not going to be under the same name, but it interfaces with a lot of other organization systems. So I don't know. I'm very fascinated to see where that goes. It's a lot of work, but we'll see. OpenSCAD, I'm terrible, but I like learning software, so I might dabble in it a little bit and try to get a better grasp on it too. I'm trying to think of what else. There's so many things. Like I'm always fed ideas from like club members or just like just people reaching out. Someone had been trying to get to it, but they wanted me to make, and I have this right on my desk. They wanted me to make stuff to hold cards, baseball cards, and Pokemon cards, all that stuff. And I'm like, all right, I really need to finish that because I started it. I just haven't wrapped that up. And I was looking at like hobby things like coin collection, all that stuff, like all those things that are like, where do you put it, after you have it? So
I don't want to pile on, but I think and your models, they do have the remix culture checked, so yes. I can tackle this myself if I need to. I was just going to change the small drawer a little bit to hold tea bags.
So yeah, absolutely. So that's something great to bring up. Like I've been getting like with the decor drawers, I've been getting a little more like okay, I want to give something special to the club members and build more incentives. So I'm gonna keep working on a lot of that stuff. But my goal with a lot of that is to make it very open, because I want this project to just keep growing and growing beyond where it currently is. So like inserts, I want to start making like a blank template for that, because oh gosh, I didn't even show that. So obviously I made like the Keurig K-Cup holder, which is a really simple model. You know, it's just like a
And
not even
you
a
know
block.
what? That could be a good learning for the Open SCAD is, you know,
Oh,
like
yeah.
you draw a cube and you're subtracting or using the Boolean difference for the cylinders.
Exactly. Yeah, and like it's super effective, like super easy model, super effective. Like, and I have consistent dimensions across my models, so it's pretty easy to make the inserts. But since I work in manufacturing, I also learn about something called 5S or lean manufacturing. Toyota, I don't know if you ever heard of that. Toyota introduced that back in the day, but it's like every tool has a home kind of thing. And actually I only learned about this like last year, but I'm starting to learn more on how to like make stuff like this. So this is my coffee grinder, and this isn't that hard to make. I might make a video on how to do this process, because essentially you just draw simple shapes like dimensions of your stuff, and you make it a little bit bigger, and you use that as a tool to like remove from like this is basically just a rectangular cube shape in the bottom. And the other thing that's important too is like when you remove the item, you know, that it shows up like that there's a void there. So something's missing, right? So I use this thing every weekend to make coffee. So I was like, all right, I got to make that for myself. I got to share this one too. I don't know how many people have my exact coffee maker, but if I start releasing models that people can, you know, do that with, I think that would be, they can make their own stuff and they can share that, and then just keep growing and growing and growing with it.
Allowing for other people to learn from the project, which is how you started out.
Yeah, exactly. I have people, oh yeah, geez, Karen stuff. Can't forget about that. So she was kind of my guinea pig with this whole thing. I'm really happy she jumped on board with it. But with my decor drawers, which have the swappable face, my goal with that is like I'm going to release a few exclusive ones to like club members. I figure it's more
like the Chevron series, right? Is that exclusive? Yeah.
Yes. So I figure like that's a good reward for, you know, their support. But then I also want this to be very open. So my goal is I got a few more faceplate sizes to design, but I'm going to release templates and then just make those open so anyone can just design whatever faceplates I want. Did I see in your photo, did you do a what's that called? I can't think of it right now.
Sublimation?
Yeah, that looks like an image.
Yeah.
Is that
oh wait, I have a picture. I don't want to, that way you don't have to.
I've been thinking about doing something like that, and you beat me to it. I'm like, that looks so good.
Oh yeah, and it's super easy. One of our earlier guests taught us how to do it. But
you said that's sublimation though? It's not
well, what it is, it's a little hack. Here, I'll pull that.
Oh, okay. So I saw you did this process before where you took like an image and you applied it to it. That's
it's a transparency sheet. It's a color printer transparency sheet. So you print on that, and then you just tape it to your bed. And I up my Z offset 0.15 millimeters.
Oh, wow!
And then it just prints, and then you peel it off, the image comes. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's helped me with the challenge. Like I love the American chestnut tree, you know, the one that was decimated by fungus in the 1910s. So I have a hybrid American chestnut tree that's growing in my yard that's 15 hearts. American and 1 part Chinese chestnut that has a natural resistance of light. I've never been able to print. I haven't even tried, but the part of their leaves, they have a really delicate sawtooth. It's like such a tiny fine point. So like, this is my little hack. Like, okay, I'm just going to put it on a drawer.
That's awesome.
So, and then I did do one of Karen's Halloween faceplate.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I used the glow in the dark filament. So hopefully, like when I turn my office light out, let me put you in solo layout, Joey, so they can see the stage.
Yeah, these are awesome because Karen took my design. She's got a very like her, I think her design process, she's very good at like taking complex things and like simplifying them in a very pleasant way. And like just like this pumpkin, it's a face. It's definitely like holiday decor, but then the eyes are the handles.
It's
like,
brilliant. Yes, it's so brilliant.
When you show that to me, I'm like, that's great. That's so good. And even her other drawers, the face on it is just, it cracks me up every time. It's so good.
Yeah, and also, just to reiterate, these are interchangeable. So
yeah,
you can do your pumpkin ones, and then maybe Karen will design some Thanksgiving ones, and
yeah,
you can just swap it out.
It's crazy. I look at these or like when I take these off and I'm like, man, that looks complicated, but like the printer's doing all the work. There's like no extra material in there. But these holes are for, and I haven't really utilized them a whole lot, other than usually on the center of faceplates. But I figure if people are designing stuff, if they want to put handles in different locations, like let me grab, I guess, like here's another example of like tool holders. It's like my Mark IV tools.
Whoa.
Gosh, right here. This would be a good one. You can see where those are coming through, and you just run, just M3 screws to hold. It's a really bright, reflective faceplate. But yeah, it just, wow, that thing is really reflective. But yeah, that's how you lock them in place. So I mean, it creates an just so different than my original like other drawers. Oh, and to mention too, like this whole design was kind of something for myself too, because I was getting tired of I love using Prusa orange, but you can imagine how like
you can notice it.
it's not in stock all the time, and it's not cheap. And they actually thanked me when I was at Murph. They're like, "Oh man, thank you for doing Prusa orange." I mean, it's a great color, but I wanted to save a lot of this material and not burn through it, so I buy a lot of cheap ETG or PLA. You could use either or, but now I can print most of the drawer with that, and then I can make the faceplate just go crazy and just look
whatever you like.
Yeah, whatever I want it to look like. So that's what I'm really excited about these. Like they're still really new, but I think they'll do really good. Yeah.
So Joey, I told you that these conversations just whiz by. So
yes, they do.
Already been an hour. How are you feeling?
Good. I feel like I keep talking and talking, but yeah, this is me.
we appreciate you being able to talk and be so easy and at ease with us while we're sharing this time. So we really appreciate that.
Hey, no problem. I really appreciate this. I was on Karen's her live stream she does on Twitch about 2 weeks ago, so I got a little bit of practice and kind of struggled with my cameras and all that stuff. So this is really like, my second time I've done anything like that. So no, I really appreciate it. It's fun sharing this stuff, and it's just like meeting the community too. Like I've always been kind of like on the outside of everything, and like to actually go to these events and be like, I know you, and then some people I know you, it's like that's that makes it so worth it to travel all the way to them and experience them.
Yes, see it in the flesh. That makes a huge difference. Really makes you feel part of things that are developing. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Joey.
Thank you.
So, just as a recap, how would you slice that? We are live and we're high maintenance. We're only live on Tuesdays that are prime numbers. This is the first time where we have 2 prime numbers back to back. So we will be back next week on November 5th. And it is
Nothing
also
happened that
election night in the US, but don't worry, we have a Canadian coming.
That's
So,
right.
And it's going to be Liz, Pet Liz, and it's going to be just a delightful conversation, and it's going to be something that Lawrence has been just itching to talk about, which is HueForge.
Yes.
Now that we're like brainstorming, maybe there'll be HueForge faceplates one day. Oh, you did do it. Your maker chip's a HueForge, isn't it?
No, that's actually okay. Really quick, this is a weird slicing thing, but I was being super lazy. I literally took one of my chips, right, and I just like turned it at an angle, and then I just like the scaling tool, I unlocked it, and then I just smashed it. So like this is an actual maker chip that it's got the QR code behind it. And same with like all the stuff. And I did that really quick because it was a lot faster than modeling it or whatever.
In Prusa Slicer, you brought in the maker chip and you changed the scale and you put it. Oh,
right.
That's a really good. That would have been a really good. How would you slice that?
Yeah. I might have to share how I did that because it saved so much time.
And part of it is a handle too. The chip is a handle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I just like cut it in half. All in the slice. This was all done in the slicer, and it didn't take that long really. And then I did a video recently where I did how to do like vector logos and stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of like my graphic design background. I'm like how to turn that into a 3D print. That was the one I ended up being sponsored by JLC 3DP. And that's my big Gen 2 logo that I take to the rep festivals with me. But I did a kind of a similar process here where I just make a vector and then like this is a faceplate that I'm like, I need something with the QR code on it. So I took this to the show with me too. So it's definitely cool using, something unrelated to 3D printing and like using it in 3D printing.
I love this bonus content for everybody who stayed to the end. We got all these.
Always stay till the end of the party.
All right. Yes. So next week, Pez Liz, election night, the 5th of November. As usual, I am very grateful to everybody in the chat who is participating and engaging with us. And also thank you so much, Joey, for coming along, and Karen for pointing you our way.
Yes, thank you, Karen. And thank you guys.
Yes, thanks so much, Joey.
Right. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day or evening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I think it's a name.